I'm Nathan Skipper with Montgomery Technology Incorporated, and this is session 10 in our MTI Control System Technician Training course. And thus far we've covered the theory behind the MTI control system as well as the termination devices for the MTI control system. And now we move on to the MTI application suite, and particularly in this video we're going to introduce the PLC software application which is used to program the embedded controller. If you are unfamiliar with our system layout and the principles behind our system, I'd encourage you to go ahead and watch the first 3 videos in this training course before looking at this video any further. There are a few things that you need to know about the MTI application suite that we need to get into before we go on to the MTI PLC software application. First of all, MTI Applications comes with every MTI control system and with every MTI control station on that system. So you should have on any control station used on the system a copy of this application. In addition, in most cases we provide a service technician laptop or a separate computer which can be used for programming purposes, and you should also have it on that. You can purchase a license for Provision and for PLC software as part of the MTI application suite, and you can program that on or load that on a service PC or laptop. And how to install the application is covered under a different video and under a different manual, and so I won't go into that now. One thing that you should know though is that MTI Applications is licensed by computer, and so in order to get MTI Applications on any computer you need to purchase a license, and that license is non-transferable. And so if you buy it on an MTI control station and you want to move that license to another computer, you have to purchase another license. Having said that, all updates to the major software revision, so currently MTI Applications is on 4.x or 4.88 as of today. Any updates to that major revision of 4 are provided free of charge, and so if you already have a software license for MTI Applications 4 and we release a new revision of that same major version, then you can download it and install it for free. When we move to an MTI Applications 5, you would have to purchase that newer version. MTI typically maintains support for the major version for the life of the Microsoft operating system on which it was first released. And so, for example, MTI Applications 4 was designed originally for Windows 7, but it is compatible with Windows 10 and later due to the fact that it's developed with Microsoft .NET 4.5, and so as long as that is supported, then we should have support for MTI Applications 4 on any later version of Windows. But our lifespan is typically tied to the major version of Windows on which that software was developed. Now, to use MTI Applications and MTI PLC software, the first thing you need to do is go to the properties of the icon and go to the compatibility tab, and down at the bottom you'll notice there's a checkbox for run this program as administrator. You want to check that because there are some things that MTI PLC software needs to do that require administrator rights, and so when you check that, it'll be able to do that. Then when you run the application, it'll ask you if you want to run as administrator, and then you say yes. From there you'll go to the file menu and you'll go to the config menu, and this will open the initial config that you'll need to set to be able to program with the PLC software. The first thing you'll need to do is set the PLC config database. This is the database that has the programming definitions and that sort of thing, and that will be automatically installed and defaulted to the path that's given there. You also need to set your default processor type, which by default is Firefly, which is the current embedded controller version. After you've set the configuration, you can open an existing project, or you can create a new project, or if you've already opened a project, there should be a recent file list that will let you open the last file you worked on. So we'll go to Open, and typically the MTI project is stored on the C drive, directly under the C drive, under the project name. This one's called WS Demo, and under that folder will be a TS folder and a SCH folder. The SCH folder contains the PLC programming database, which is named by the project number. So when you open that, you'll notice that there's a project pane and a sheet pane, the project pane to the left and the sheet pane to the right. And in that, you'll have a list of all the sheets, the programming sheets, which are divided into 64-bit addresses. And then at the very bottom, you'll have a project sheet. The project sheet has each processor listed out, or processor sheet, the description of that processor sheet, the panel that that sheet is associated with, or the panels that sheet is associated with, the ID for the embedded controller or PLC 2000 PLC that is related to that sheet, and that's typically 1 through the number of embedded controllers or sheets or PLC 2000s. The channel is just a unique number for that processor sheet, and then the PLC ID, which with the embedded controller is the IP address. And then out at the very right, you have the port 620, which is the port on the 81620 that this processor sheet is associated with. And then lastly, the IP address of the 81620 that this processor sheet is associated with. Another sheet that you have is a interconnect sheet, and this has all the processor sheets listed out along with the registers or the channels for each processor. And so you'll have A, B, C, and SW, which are all the output channels for each processor sheet. So A out, B out, C out, and switch. And from that, you have the processor channel and the processor number that you want that register to go to. So this interconnect sheet is a way to copy a whole register from one processor sheet to another processor sheet. And this is useful when you're wanting to pass certain bits back and forth on a processor programming, so that you can do special programming in that processor. You have locking sheets. Locking sheets like the 122002 that I have selected here have all sheets have the same columns, but a locking processor sheet has particular things that you set in it. You have the address column, which is 00 through 77, the number column, which is the unique identifier for that. You have the type, which is the typically DR for a door. You have the description, which is just a free text description of the door. And then you have a set of columns out past that that are ways of logically dividing the programming. You can put whatever function you want in pretty much all of these columns, except for the very last few. But you want to maintain your programming into logical places. So SW1 and SW2 designate switch functions. So like the PLS1 function is a pulse for 1 second. In the LED1 and the LED2, you might want to put, or you should put, input functions like the DPS function, which tells the programming to indicate a LED that's on, or an address that's on. You also have intercom sheets, and the intercom sheet behaves somewhat differently than a locking sheet in that it passes the intercom inputs into the keypad for the intercom system, the MTI intercom system. And so you have the same columns, you have the address, the number, the type, the description, you have specific intercom functions like the SEL, but then out to the right you have the AMP IP and the masters column. The AMP IP designates the amplifier, the digital amplifier that this particular address is associated with, and then the masters column designates the intercom masters that should receive a call-in for that intercom when it is selected. And we'll go into a great deal more detail in the lab as far as how to program certain functions, what these functions do, and we'll also go into much greater detail in the programming when we get into the PLC software in more detail in later videos.